All right, team. Let's make this a quick one. We're gonna do the daily or the weekly log rather. Actually, this is the weekly log for um the week of January 31st. Okay, so let's just go over the weekly down to the daily to the 4 hours to the 1 hour, and I will just review it real quick and see what's happening on higher time frames here. So on the weekly, pretty interesting, right? So we've been hovering in the upper half of this weekly BISI. Right, we mohawked out of it a couple weeks ago, came back into it, closing the upper half of the consequent encroachment, ran higher, taking out this high, and then during the deep seek we ran lower, failing to take out this low, but came back throughout the week and closed in the upper half of this weekly BISI FEG, and so this tells me that the bodies are still being supported in the upper half of this weekly FEG BISI. So honestly, I would like to see longs going into next week because this is bullish price action for me, at least from what the bodies are telling me. You can see this large move on the daily candle here that formulated on Monday because of that DeepSeek news. But the market clearly priced in that overreaction by reacting in the upper half of this wick and basically filling in completely that entire range as we continue throughout the week. And filled in this liquidity void, even though over the past couple of days, right, we were struggling to get through it. But then ultimately ended up filling in this liquidity void and this daily SIBI as well throughout the week. But these are the times where you can anticipate very high resistance, trash conditions, right? Like, so if you are losing, right, if you're not seeing trades that are not coming as good to you, here's a couple of reasons why. We have this daily SIBI that we are tapping into. You can expect higher time frame resistance conditions when you're bullish, right? And you're trying to get through a daily like premium array like this, right? If I want to see these relative equal highs getting taken out at some point, right? Like, and you want to see this liquidity void filled in at the very least, it's going to be hard to get through this SIBI level, right? It also has an inversion for value gap daily BISI over here. You can anticipate higher time frame resistance. And it's these kind of conditions where maybe you don't want to be trading on a live account, maybe just trade eval and wait for better market conditions. Because you could end up easily eroding your account, right? Um, on the 4 hour, let's just go over what's happened throughout the week. I just want to take a lot of this lipstick off for a second. So you can see, going into Monday morning, you had this really large new week opening gap that forms, right? Going into Sunday, actually, trading. New week opening gap forms and we just fall overnight, right? Because a lot of the international markets have already gotten that deep sick news. But then by the time you get into Monday morning, right, people have started to cool off from that news a little bit, and we're starting to just assess it rationally. And we've taken out this low over here, but we didn't take out these relative equal lows. And I really don't anticipate this low to get taken up because we took out all these lows over here. So this is now like intermediate. This is not like a long-term low, right? And so it's a rejection block. It's hard for this to get taken out. So we take out this liquidity, but not this one. Price immediately starts retracing higher, right? Typically actually getting supported by this 4 hour FEG BISI. Really think about it. Because it's like a mohawk, right? Like price closed below it, but what I said in this channel, if the next candle doesn't expand very far away from it, but it actually comes back and overlaps it, just like what we saw in the weekly, right? Price is actually being supported by it, as you can see, because we come back here and we're still hovering in the upper half of it, tapping it a few times to run higher. Um, and now we have all of this 4 hour SIBI levels that it's just going to be hard for price to get through throughout the week to eventually reach this liquidity void that we wanted to see, which is aka this new week opening gap as well. But the liquidity void is this complete lack of trading here, right? I want to see price reprice back to that with a body, which you can see it does on the 4 hour eventually. But look at how we struggled to get through that during the week. So that's exactly why you're going to have some pretty trash price action, right? Like a lot of times, like notice if a very large 15-minute fair value gap forms and you're trying to trade, like during the Judas swing, and then the rest of the session is like trying to run through that. Unless you're really bullish, it's gonna be hard for price to reprice through that fair value gap SIBI and go make a new high, right? And so that's exactly what we're seeing here. So we are pretty much consolidating for the rest of the Monday, and then Tuesday overnight we consolidate. We form a low here that takes out this trendline liquidity here. and then going into the AM session, create an expansive bullish 4-hour candle, confirming here really that price is actually going to come and target this liquidity void. Price makes a high right overnight here on going into Wednesday. We come back and dip into this 4-hour BISI, run higher again. Creating this 4-hour inversion SIBI at this point. That price actually ends up being supported by. Okay. Price ends up being supported by and stays in the upper half of it, and then runs higher. Finally, to tap this 4-hour SIBI by the end of Friday. Okay, and then dips lower, retracing this new day opening gap move here and filling this 4-hour BISI that formed overnight here as well. Let's go on the 1 hour. You can see that immediate retracement, right? Immediate retracement. 1 hour for I got that forms that price ends up mohawking around, but it actually ends up still being supported by it. Taps it one more time, continues to run higher. Going to Tuesday overnight, we take out this liquidity and expand higher going into Tuesday morning. Okay, so Judas swing going to 9:30 just to expand higher, right? Taking out these lows, running higher, right? Going to Tuesday morning, and it makes a high at a PM session. Okay, we've now reached the critical 4-hour and 1 hour SIBI. That price also, I believe, makes SMT with ES at these highs as well. And then runs lower back to this redelivered rebalance price range on the 1 hour. Redelivered rebalance price range on the 1 hour. Consolidates overnight. Makes a high going into London. Consolidates. Pre-market starts to run lower, inverting this 1 hour BISI level, returning back to this old 4 hour for value gap, right? So notice how we invert this 1 hour BISI because we have this 4 hour for value gap that's below here, right? So higher time frames trump lower time frames. Interact in the upper half of that 4 hour BISI, ultimately end up coming back and just tapping this 1 hour BISI below here, run higher, making a new high here eventually by Thursday London session, consolidate, and then going into the AM, we expand lower, return back to this 4 hour BISI one more time, and immediately finding support from that. And staying inside this 4 hour for value gap SIBI, because remember, this is an inverted 4 hour SIBI at this point, and price is operating in the upper half. But even though we expand lower, just taps 4 hour BISI one more time, because remember, we have a daily SIBI above here, so it's likely that price will have these very sharp retracements lower. But price action is still telling you through the bodies that we still want to return back to this 4 hour SIBI level because we are actually being supported by it to run higher. Price runs higher, continues to trickle overnight, going to Thursday, going to Friday, and then by Friday morning, make a high, completely filling in that liquidity void, which is this new week opening gap as well here. And then coming back to the low or the bottom half of the 4 hour semi-constant encroachment, and then ram lower going to Friday PM, taking out all his trendline liquidity that formed overnight since Thursday. Returning back to this old 4 hour FEG BISI, taking out these London lows and Asian lows, and ending off the week here back around equilibrium of this move. So hopefully this has been helpful on a weekly bias forming and a daily bias formation. And catch you guys next week.